Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
All right, let me just get right to it here. It's 5:06. It's Monday morning. It's very busy. I've got a ton of things to get to. I just want you to know Joe DeGenova will be here at 7:05. All right, because they're hot. Julie Gunlock. In the last week, how much have we learned about our president? How much have we learned about our FBI? How much have we learned about the oversight?
Enough to give me a stomach ache.
Enough to get me fired up for Joe DeGenova at 7:05. So let me just get that right off the top of the show here. Don't worry. In 2 hours, we got Joe, and he'll unpack it all. Oh, also, right before that at 6:35, Juan Pablo Segura is running for the Virginia State Senate out in Loudoun County. Kind of important this November for Virginia. Coming up at 8:05, Sal Lagonia. He's a expert on the Department of Transportation and aviation issues. We're going to talk about that horrible story last week, commercial airline passengers trapped there on the tarmac.
Yeah. Gosh.
And then at 8:35, it's Shark Week. We're going to talk to Tom the Blowfish Hurd. Did you see the story about the cocaine sharks?
I did.
Okay,
I'm still not getting over the cocaine bear.
Critter News written all over it. We're very excited about the cocaine sharks. But let's get to a bit of a preview for what we're going to talk to Joe DeGenova about here, Jules, because honestly, you regroup over last week. You had your IRS whistleblowers in testimony. You had the censorship testimony that we heard from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and the writer from the New York Post, whose entire research, but Pulitzer-level caliber investigative reporting over at the New York Post, completely ignored and whitewashed and censored by the rest of the media. And then you had the release, Chuck Grassley released the FBI 1023 document that shows the confidential human source detailing specifically a bribery scheme worth $10 million for the Biden family in exchange for policy and access for members of this Burisma gas company over in Ukraine. I mean, you start adding all of this stuff up, and it's like, good Lord, all of these things that we learned last week. And first it brings to mind this moment, and good on the RNC research department over there. They have this catalog of all these videos. This is the beauty of Joe Biden being in politics for over 5 decades. You got a treasure trove of BS from this guy.
Yes.
And you remember this moment in 2019, he's in Iowa, he's doing a town hall, and a man stands up and says, listen, I keep hearing about your son in this gas company in Ukraine and the fact that he got to fly around with you all over the world and he had access to you and he even had access to the president. Listen to this and remind yourself of how Joe Biden reacted to this poor guy, this citizen in Iowa who just wants, straight answers from the guy who wants to be president.
But you, on the other hand, sent your son over there to get a job and work for a gas company that he had no experience with gas or nothing, in order to get access to the office for the president. So you're selling access to the president just like he is.
He says you're selling access to the president, just like your son is. You sent him over there into Ukraine. And I mean, listen, what evidence do we have to contradict that at this point, given everything that we've learned, right? This is just a guy, just an Iowa voter at a town hall.
Right.
And he's saying, I got a problem with voting for you, given all of this stuff. Here's Biden.
So
You're a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one has ever said that. No one has heard that.
I see it on the TV.
You see it on the TV. No, I know you do. And by the way, that's why I'm not sedentary. I don't like to get up and let him go. Let him go. Look, the reason I'm running is because I've been around a long time and I know more than most people know. And I can get things done. That's why I'm running. And you want to check my shape on it, let's do push-ups together here, man. Let's do what's wrong. Let's do whatever you want to do. Let's take my
He starts with, you're a damn liar. Then he says, the reason I'm running is because I know more than anybody else who's out there. And if you don't believe me, you want to have a push-up contest with me. He's like, the man was demented then, and we were pointing it out to everybody.
Yes. And this got coverage. I mean, this, they reported on this.
Yeah, exactly. He said, I heard it on the TV. And he just said, you heard it on the TV. It's not like you didn't read it in the New York Times, so it can't be true.
I mean, I try to stay pretty much of a happy warrior most of the time. But, this is like when you see the polls where, his approval rating is at 30%. You're like, who's that 30%?
Right. It's the ones that not paying attention. But you know what? He's got more of this diatribe against.
No one has said my son has done anything wrong, and I did not on any occasion. And no one has ever said it. Now,
I didn't say you were doing anything wrong.
You said I set up my son to work in an oil company. Isn't that what you said? Get your words straight, Jack.
Get your story straight, Jack.
God.
So I love the way he's splitting hairs here. You said I set him up. Which clearly, okay, maybe you didn't set him up personally.
Someone seems a little defensive.
Right. But you hear no one has ever claimed that my son did anything wrong, which is he's always done this. He's like, no one ever said that my son did it. No, actually, everybody's saying your son did that. In fact, your son has admitted that he's done things wrong.
Yeah, I'm just surprised he didn't bring up Beau Biden at that point.
Right. My son died from his injuries in Iraq.
On the battlefield.
A combat warrior. He took a shell to the...
Yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I mentioned when he said, you saw it on the TV, you can't believe it, you gave, unless it's in the New York Times, it doesn't exist. Molly Hemingway did a little search over the weekend on the New York Times website and searched the term Grassley Biden Burisma. Now, if you ask any of our listeners or anybody who reads the Federalist or Town Hall or any of the various websites that are not beholden to the Democratic National Committee, if you ask them, hey, anything in the news last week involving Senator Grassley, Joe Biden, and Burisma? They'd be like, well, of course. We got this document released that
How long do you have?
A confidential human source telling the FBI that Biden took millions of dollars in bribes to help out Burisma. Yeah, you search it on the New York Times, as Molly Hemingway did. Grassley, Biden, Burisma. The first hit is from June 5th.
She said, New York Times readers are the most criminally misinformed people in the country.
That's right.
That is
You read the New York Times and you literally do not know what's going on right now in this country, and certainly with the president. Oh, and by the way, the one article from June 5th is Republicans escalating attacks on FBI, vow to hold duress. Yeah, the story is not about actually the corruption and the problem and the scandal. It's about how Republicans are pouncing.
Overreacted.
Yeah, there you go. And then the second hit is from March. Republicans, once harsh Ukraine critics, pivot to strong support. So there's nothing about the actual, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, news, the actual news.
Impeachable offenses.
Involving Grassley. And so there you go. And again, just to remind you, the stuff that the New York Times audience does not get, the New York Times, your average New York Times reader. When you ask who's the 30% that still support Biden, it's the people who read the New York Times.
That's right.
Here's what they didn't hear about last week.
So this 1023 form, former Attorney General Barr told me on the show a few weeks ago that it was sent to Delaware to the Weiss investigation that was already open. So I asked this latest whistleblower, Joseph Ziegler, if he ever saw that form as part of his investigation as the IRS agent on this case. Here's what he told me.
I had never seen that document before. So I had never seen that 1023. And the reason why that 1023 might have been important is that can further validate some other evidence that we are trying to prove in the case. And that's why all information is necessary for especially the lead IRS case agent to have.
That's the lead IRS case agent looking into all of this money from Hunter Biden, where it came from, they're actually looking at bank transfers, they're looking at wire transfers, overseas accounts, shell companies, and here's the FBI sitting on this confidential human source saying, by the way, $10 million went into these companies.
Yep.
And here's why. And
that 1023 was put in a back drawer and forgotten about.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm shocked it wasn't shredded.
I am. You know what? Actually, it's so funny you say that because I had a conversation with someone this weekend. They said, "My God, someone is so mad that this got out." Then they should have been in the
understand.
Burn
This is still even though J. Edgar Hoover is dead and gone. This is still J. Edgar. This is the house that J. Edgar bought. And if they know anything over there at the FBI, you don't destroy these documents because hey, who knows? 5 years from now we might have to use it against Biden. Right? So no. I mean that's my impression of the FBI now at this point.
Yeah.
Is that they'll just hold on to the documents until it serves their purpose, and their purpose, sadly, it appears, is not justice. All right, more on the FBI and on what wasn't revealed in the mainstream media last week in a moment.
News Talk 105.9
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
You're selling access to the president just like he is. So you
You're
got
a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one has ever said that. No one has heard that.
I see it on the TV.
You see it on the TV.
Yeah, but you sure didn't read it in the New York Times or the Washington Post or any of the other broadcast networks, by the way. Good old Joe Biden, good old lunch bucket Joe. They're like, it's Uncle Joe. He's always got a slap on the back. His Irish eyes are smiling. He's such a happy-go-lucky.
Look, Pat, look, here's the deal.
Yeah, he's calling people fat. He's calling them liars, calling them, challenging him to an IQ test, challenging him to a push-up test. It's
Yeah.
Joe Biden has always been an obnoxious, insufferable jerk. But you know what? Here's the thing. It's not like, yes, sure, he behaves that way and he lies about the corruption in his family and in his own life. But at least his policies are so great. I mean, he's such a good Catholic,
Right.
He wears his faith on his sleeve and he manifests.
Takes care of all of his grandchildren.
That's right. He loves all the little children that he can sniff. And of course, he protects the unborn like a good Catholic should.
Right.
Never lies about the Catholic Church's position on such matters. Never bears false witness or anything like that would lead people to hell if they follow him and listen to him. Well,
he didn't lie about the death of his first wife and ruin the man's life who
was in an
hit her.
accident.
Yeah, due to her fault.
Yeah, he constantly said
that
that guy was a drunk driver.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
it ruined his life.
But then again, okay, listen, you're right. That stuff is sort of inconsistent with his moral compass as well. But but at least his economy is strong. At least his economic policies. I mean, Bidenomics is just tearing it up, right?
There is that.
And once again, I'm with you on the 30% thing. Who the hell are these people? Jonathan Turley, yesterday, by the way, going back to the FBI, basically, ignoring subpoenas from Congress. And that's the other thing that continues to boggle my mind. This document that Chuck Grassley put out last week, unredacted, the FBI, again, insisted that no one should be able to see this because it was a national security problem. It would put agents' lives in danger. All the reasons they always tell us.
And yet it wasn't classified.
There's no reason why this thing should be redacted or not put out. So here's Jonathan Turley yesterday on Fox News.
Jonathan, can you assess why that didn't land in his desk during this investigation that took 5 years?
No, they also testified that they were denied the ability to be debriefed on what was coming out of the FBI on this issue. And Bill Barr said that he sent this issue originally to Pittsburgh, and the U.S. Attorney's Office, rather than the FBI, found additional information that the FBI did not. And then they sent it to Delaware. And it's increasingly seems like the FBI is the place where evidence goes to die. I mean, you send evidence to the FBI. If it has the name Biden on it, it dies a very rapid death.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, if it has the name Trump on it or anybody's name with an R after it, it gets leaked to the Washington Post, or a special counsel investigation is created, or a counterintelligence investigation is created. That's where our FBI is right now. And I'm sorry, I keep hearing how great all the the boots on the ground and the regular Joes who are doing the hard work of the FBI, and I have no doubt there are great people at the FBI. Of course there are. You're being absolutely destroyed by your leadership, and it's time for you to step up and say something about it. It's not good enough for you to just shrug and say, well, that's the seventh floor. You know how those guys are. No. It's reflecting directly on you. And if it keeps up, there's going to be a move in this nation to eliminate the FBI. I don't want the FBI eliminated. I don't think that's feasible or possible. But my God.
I don't know, Larry. I think it is so corrupt at this point. And I feel bad for the rank and file members of the FBI who do great work. But I don't know if it's redeemable at this point.
Well,
it's really disturbing what we're seeing.
Hold on there. It's not like they're using their vast surveillance powers that are put in place under the guise of national security to spy on individual innocent Americans and even a U.S. senator. It's not like they're doing that.
Sure about that?
Oh, hold on a minute. You might want to hold here and wait for a story that we're going to share with you that was revealed on Friday about apparently the FBI. Hold on. In just a moment, we'll tell you this latest story about apparently the FBI spying illegally on a U.S. senator. We'll tell you about it in a moment. It's 5:23. All right, quick history lesson here. And don't worry, there's not going to be on the test. Back in 2008, The current FISA protocols, FISA is the surveillance, the secret surveillance court that allows intelligence agencies, specifically here domestically the FBI, to do a whole host of surveillance on American citizens who are engaged in conversations overseas with potential people who could be plotting against the country. This is all in the wake of 2001.
Even with made-up dossiers. But
right,
go on.
exactly.
So.
Even that's exactly. The FISA court was abused by the FBI and the Justice Department to help Hillary Clinton hurt Donald Trump and undermine the Trump presidency. You'll remember. There's also a part of the FISA provision, the law, that's called the Section 702. 702 basically takes this huge net and gathers a ton of raw information, text messages, emails, phone calls, ton of surveillance on American citizens, and it just keeps it in a database. Now, that's all well and good if you think that it's only going to be used to find the bad guys who are plotting against this country. But when this was passed, the American people didn't realize how wide-ranging this surveillance and data collection operation was. It wasn't until the Edward Snowden story where the American people even knew about this. That's when James Clapper was asked point blank, are you collecting all this information? And he said no, under oath, speaking with Senator Wyden from Oregon, right? And then, of course, that was a lie. It was, and Obama, by the way, said, okay, we hate Snowden and Snowden's awful. And Snowden's a traitor. He broke the law. And he's but what Snowden revealed did, in fact, even bring President Obama to say, okay, we're going to reform all this. We shouldn't be doing this anymore.
Oopsie.
We're going to reform it. And we were told we were going to reform it until, of course, they used that Section 702 to search on and surveil innocent American citizens who dared to support President Trump. And so then a federal court in 2018 said, all right, you got to stop doing that. And the FBI said, yeah, we're going to stop that. We're going to reform all of this. We're not going to do this anymore. So here comes Friday's news dump. Secretive court. This did make it to the Washington Post, by the way. That tells you. A secretive federal court approved the FBI's use of a powerful warrantless surveillance authority in November, so they re-upped it, basically. They said, okay, yeah, you can keep using this system, despite finding that the Bureau had repeatedly violated rules meant to protect American citizens' privacy. And if you look at the details of this court's finding, and let me be clear, this is as the court is reauthorizing the FBI to use this surveillance. Yeah. The court's supposed to be looking out for us on this. The reauthorized it, and in the document, the federal filing that shows the data that the judge discovered in the course of reauthorizing the FBI's usage, it turns out that this Section 702 data, a U.S. senator's name was searched without a warrant.
And they don't give the name.
They do not give the senator's name.
Wow.
But the FBI said, oh, well, that was before we put our reforms in place.
Should we guess? Who do you think?
I would say Cruz, maybe.
You think? I think Rand Paul.
Rand Paul could be.
Possibly Hawley.
Oh, Josh Hawley's a good guess. You know who I bet it wasn't? I bet it wasn't Dianne Feinstein.
I bet
it wasn't Chuck Schumer.
I bet
it wasn't anyone with a D. It's 5:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:37. It's O'Connor and Company on this Monday morning. Thanks for joining us. I hope you know, after everything we just laid out for you in our first half hour, we will be following up with all of those stories with the great Joe DeGeneva coming up at 7:05. Also at 6:35, Juan Pablo Segura is running for Virginia State Senate. He'll join us. 8:05, Sal Lagonia. He's a pilot aviation expert. Talk about what's going on with all of these canceled flights. Again, my family, United, absolutely screwed everybody on Friday night.
Oh, really?
Flights. My entire family was stranded in the Northeast for 3.5 hours. It was insane. So we'll talk about what's happening with the airlines. 8:35. Tom the Blowfish heard about Shark Week and a strange story about cocaine sharks. It's out there. It's going to be part of Shark Week. Does your family? You got a lot of boys in the house. Do you partake in Shark Week? Is that a big deal for you guys?
It used to be. It's not as much anymore. We'll probably watch a few shows. I also don't like to watch it right before my vacation to the ocean. So I'm trying to So which is in mid-August, and I've been looking forward to it. But I don't want to watch that.
Well, there's never any issues with great white sharks in beautiful coastal Northeast town.
Yes, there are.
Wait a minute.
Great. Now I'm going to have to send you a bunch of articles to prove myself right, and then I have to think about it.
I'm sorry. Whenever I think of disasters involving sharks, it's always West Coast based with Sharknado. That was very. Wasn't there Sharknado in Vegas? I think too. Didn't they take the sharks across the desert?
I think the key is to not look like a seal. So I don't have black bathing suits.
That's a good call.
Yeah. No, I'm very colorful. I want to look like a tacky middle-aged woman in the water.
Me too. All right. So lots of shark stories coming up at 8:35. In the meantime, let's. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a presidential election afoot. Two big developments in the presidential election. First, the judge overseeing the classified documents case, President Trump, set the court date, May 2024. Gee, let's just think this through for a minute.
What is with that date?
It'll be literally at the end of the caucus and primary process.
Yeah.
We basically will know who the nominee is at that point. As of now, it will be President Trump as the Republican nominee, and that's when he'll go to court.
Yeah,
when he's
and
in
you know
the middle
what?
of running for president. But it's not. This is not a political investigation.
He's going to work this like Zoolander.
Well.
He is going to use this for and
as well he should. If I were him, I would too. Because
me too. Are you kidding?
It's outrageous. So there's that we learned on Friday. Meanwhile, latest round of polls, and there's one consistent. I just want to repeat. I say this all the time, especially at this point in the game. The national polls, in many respects, are meaningless. It's still very early. We haven't even had our first debate. Also, we don't nominate presidents or elect presidents on a national basis, as you know. It's on a state-by-state basis. The Iowa poll, the New Hampshire poll, and the South Carolina polls are much more informative right now in terms of how the nomination might go. But the national polls do tell you something. It tells you how the campaigns are going in terms of their media presence, in terms of their media buys and their ads, things like that, their tactics, their strategies. And all the latest polls have one thing in common, and that is Vivek Ramaswamy is surging right now. Mm-hmm. In fact, he has just recently overtaken Mike Pence as third place. Now, it's a distant third to Trump and DeSantis, but it still has raised a lot of eyebrows about this guy and about his approach and about the way he's communicating his ideas.
Every single video that comes out with Vivek, he was interrupted by a woman who was screaming at him at a luncheon, and he handled it superbly. He goes on with tough radio people or podcasters, and he is incredibly uplifting and smart in his responses. He just does not make a misstep. So I'm not surprised he's surging. Again, look, we live in a world of social media today, mm-hmm. and a lot of people are way too cautious and way too practiced and are not good sort of responding to question. He's very good. So again, I'm not surprised at all.
Well, he's definitely pretty practiced, though. He's good at media and he's good at responding. But you're right. He goes into the lines.
But he just speaks extemporaneously. He's not on script.
He went on CNN and went toe to toe with Don Lemon, and Don Lemon is no longer there.
Right.
So that tells you something as well. He did very well at the. Here's the other thing. Of all the candidates, he's the one who was running very pro-Trump. He's like, I keep saying that this is what we need to see from DeSantis, from Scott, from Haley. You've got to figure out a way to run against Trump and still be pro-Trump. You can't show up here and say Trump blows because you supported Trump. You were part of his cabinet.
That's right.
You pushed his agenda when you were in the House or the Senate and when you were governor of Florida. You've got to figure out a way to say Trump's great, Trump's wonderful, I supported Trump, I think it was bad, but here's why it's my turn now. Not because Trump is bad, but because you have something better to offer.
I don't know.
For the life of me, I have no idea why Ron DeSantis hasn't done that yet. He has a great story to tell.
Yeah, I don't know that you need to be super pro-Trump because I think Trump's changed. And I think that, people, their opinions change about Trump. And I think he has changed, and I think some people are frustrated that he spends a lot of time talking. Well, I don't share their frustration because, he is under attack. And I think that the attacks on him are attacks on the American public. But I do think that, you can. You can criticize Trump for the modern.
I don't think there's any reason to criticize Trump.
Well,
if you're a Republican and you're running for the Republican nominee, I'm making the point as to why Vivek Ramaswamy is surging, and this is why he's surging. He doesn't criticize Trump.
That's right.
And all DeSantis has to do, all Haley has to do, all Tim Scott has to do, they won't do it, but all they've got to do is, these are all the great things Trump did. His policies were fantastic.
I want to carry that
Now
on.
it's my turn.
Yeah.
That's all. It's that simple. And by the way, that's exactly what any Democrat who wants to challenge Joe Biden should do as well. And you'd be shocked at what kind of support you'll get. Because you know why I say that's what you should do? Because that's what the voters want to hear. Because that's what the voters are thinking. The voters are thinking, love Trump policies. I wouldn't mind seeing somebody else execute them.
Yes, exactly.
That's all.
You're right. Yep.
Oh, wait, say that again.
Oh, stop.
It's 5:44. I want to tell you about my friends over at New Look Home Design, because if you need a new roof or siding, by the way, if you need siding for your home, you want to talk to New Look Home Design. Right now, New Look has a great offer. You get free gutters and 50% off all roofing materials when you get a new roof. Or you can get free gutters with a complete siding replacement. Now, the new gutters alone are worth a couple of $1,000s, so this is a fantastic deal. Also, you'll make no payments with no interest financing till next summer. And if you mention me or mention this ad, you're going to get a $100 Restaurant.com gift card with an in-home presentation. Now, the gift card's yours to enjoy whether you purchase from New Look or not. New Look's done work at my home. Meredith and I still get compliments all the time. In fact, we got the siding and gutters from them, too, and it absolutely transformed our home. It's time for new siding, guys. Get that with your roof, too. New Look offers free estimates, one-day roof installations, a lifetime warranty, and senior citizens and friends in the military, you get 5% off as well. 800-279-5300, 800-279-5300, or newlookhomedesign.com. That's newlookhomedesign.com. 545. We told you on Friday about the fact that President Biden, as we've seen, has had trouble going up the steps of Air Force One, stumbling up and down the steps, also stumbling down the steps of Marine One, the helicopter that takes him on shorter trips. It's just a constant thing now, every time. And he's wearing these, if you notice, he's wearing these black tennis shoes without socks, which is weird, too. I think this has to do with him not being able to, bend over and put socks on or lace up shoes.
Possibly. Well, balance is a real problem as you get older.
Yeah.
And so it might be sort of a matter of he gets dizzy. I don't know. I mean, I'm no doctor, but I just feel like
something's going on.
Well, this is what you see when people get older.
Yeah.
They don't make the most fashionable shoe choices. They use, it's more practicality.
Yeah. And by the way, the way to solve the problem of, they're calling it, this is an optics problem. No, it's our president is not all their problem.
Yeah.
It's an optics problem. And to solve the optics problem of Biden stumbling his way up the steps of Air Force One, they've just decided to use different stairs.
Oh, I've seen this, yes.
Yeah. So instead of going up the really long, majestic staircase up to the top of the 747, and they're using the little steps that the press uses, I think. It's like a little in the bottom belly of the plane that he just,
it's
ambles
like 8
up.
Stairs.
Right.
Yeah.
And the rise on the stairs, so that'll solve the problem.
Pretty soon it's going to be one of those chair lifts where you sit in it and it
yeah, I was speculating. Do they have that left over from FDR? But I guess they didn't have an Air Force One back there with FDR.
So.
But the best is Politico's reporting on it. Here's the headline: Biden downplays age talk, but subtle accommodations are being made.
God,
it's just subtle accommodations.
Yeah.
From the dinners declined to the way he boards Air Force One and the shoes he wears, Biden's routines are changing. Isn't that nice? It's just a new routine. A subtle accommodation to the president's age, but it's hiding in plain sight. Although the White House won't concede that.
And then when we notice it, when the American public notice it, we're ageist.
Yeah.
Right? We're ageist.
By the way, I mean, it's important to point out his age. It's obviously a concern. It's obviously a red flag. It's obviously something that you should take into account. But it's the least of my issues with Joe Biden. When you make a list of all your problems with Joe Biden, honestly, the corruption, the crime, the angry, hostile temperament, the fact that he calls every Republican who supported Donald Trump a fascist, an enemy of the people, the fact that he lies all the time, the fact that the economy continues to be in the toilet, the fact that he's trying to unilaterally do things outside of the Constitution and the courts. I put those above his age, But the age is a problem. It's definitely something that...
Well, those problems also become exasperated as you get older. There's lots of stories of people who say, my dad was a super sweet guy, but as he's gotten older, he's gotten more prickly and more mad. And so that's a part of it. But the interesting thing is, Larry, is that, you'd think under these circumstances, they would trot out Kamala more. You would see more of the vice president. And you just can't rely on her. She's just a gift because her videos are always viral. But also, who also emerged this weekend? I saw I am seeing a lot of Nancy Pelosi. I mean, the Democrat Party, Bernie Sanders, the octogenarians that make up the leadership, and there's no new blood. They don't trot out anyone new.
Let's get back to, though, how Politico is. This is the way the media deceives you. They cover it, but they don't cover it. They cover it up as they cover it, right? So the article, this should be a story about, some very disconcerting things. The headline, again, Biden downplays age talk. But subtle accommodations are being made. Look at this line. This is exactly how this is media bias staring you straight in the face, and most people will just read it and it'll just gloss over them and become embedded into their subconscious. I'm going to point it out to you. Get this sentence. Ready? The age factor is arguably the president's biggest political problem as he embarks on a re-election campaign. So there's Politico. That's stating that as fact, not opinion. Not attributing it to anyone else. That's the voice of Politico saying, Biden would be a shoo-in for re-election because everything's so great and it's been such a successful presidency.
But
if it weren't for that age thing. Yeah, the age thing is really his biggest political. Really, the age thing is the biggest political problem, not the bribery from a foreign country,
right.
not the crimes, not the corruption, not the cover-ups, not the temperament, not the screaming, not the gas prices, not the supply chain problems, not the inability to get any baby formula still, not the smacked down by the Supreme Court because he subverted the Constitution with the student loan scheme. None of that is a problem. No, the age thing. That's largely why aides are also trying to limit situations where any signs of physical frailty might be on heightened display.
Like leaving a stage.
In other words, the aides are covering up. Any other reporter would say, well, it looks like this is all a show and it's theatrics, and the White House staff is now being used to cover up his frailty. By the way, isn't that a misuse of White House personnel? That's for political purposes. That's to win a campaign. And the White House personnel are being used basically to run his campaign right now with all the optics. That's why he only has 7 staffers on the campaign.
But the next paragraph, Larry, is what really makes me want to gag. Ultimately, the White House wants to keep the focus on the president's, wait for it, record of historic legislative accomplishments. Really?
That's in the Politico article.
That is the Politico article.
That's not. No one quoted. No attribution. That's just.
And then they say a surprisingly resilient economy. Are you kidding? And a foreign policy that even Republicans concede has restored American alliances.
All right, that may be your favorite part. Here's my favorite part, the very final sentence. As Biden wrapped up a successful trip across 3 countries last Thursday, he strode across the tarmac in Helsinki to board Air Force One using the lower stairs. And he still stumbled slightly going up.